Hey, Fitzy here, back at it again with another one. Well, we're back from our trip. If you don't know, myself and Wayne took a trip up to the Maritimes. We left Newfoundland, went across the island, got the boat. What I'm going to show you here now is from a car show that I went to up in Moncton, New Brunswick, Canada. Okay, it's called Radical Speed and Sport. It's on the go, 51 years. They have over 300 customs, antiques, imports, you name it. They had it there. Trucks. It was there. Motorcycles. It was quite interesting. It was my first time there. Blew my mind. I really like the layout of how they show the cars. We haven't had shows like that here in Newfoundland in a lot of years. I always love displays. Put them in, roping them off, and then putting them up on the sun, mirrors underneath them, lights shining on them. I always thought that just give you an atmosphere. Then you have vendors along the outside walls selling shirts and items, stuff like that. Bit of music playing. Crowds were crazy up there. I got to meet a few of you guys up there as well. Had a grand conversation with a number of you. It was pretty cool just to sit down, just talk cars. But it was a very good show, and I videotaped a lot of it. And what's interesting is it was 4 buildings. Now I saw 3 of the buildings and sat down, figured I saw it all. I was impressed with that, and then I was told there was a 4th building and there was another 2 levels. So I took it in and we went in and saw the other section and we saw 1 level. I still never saw all the cars because when I got home, I looked and there was pictures of vehicles that I never saw. That were in another section of the building. So it was a pretty wild show. I'm really pleased with it, and I'm hoping to go back next year. So I'm gonna take you guys along now and go through all the cars were in the show. So stick around.